All right, everybody. Hope you all had a good morning today and enjoyed your lunch. Thanks for joining us today. I'm very happy to be moderating a GCP partner panel where we have 4 industry experts who are here to talk to us a little bit about some of the practical strategies they've had helping customers move to the cloud. A quick round of introductions. To your left is Mike Pearl. Mike is a principal at PwC's US consulting business. Mike is PwC's technology consulting leader for the technology, entertainment, and media, telecommunications, and hospitality industries. He also serves as PwC's global cloud computing leader. Mike has been a leader in PwC's digital transformation initiatives for several years and was one of the principal authors of the firm's digital transformation framework and cloud computing strategy. Mike has over 22 years of management technology consulting experience delivering strategy, design, and operations consulting, as well as large-scale transformation and technology services to clients across multiple industries. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you.
Next, we have John Crosswaite. John is Accenture's CTO for the communications, media, and technology sector. Based in LA, John has spent 25 years working in the industry and has, for the past 10 years, been responsible for Accenture's largest media clients, including the Walt Disney Company. As the North American CTO for CMT, John leads technology consulting, which drives Accenture's broad offerings spanning strategy, consulting, technology, operations, and digital to create end-to-end transformation on how clients deliver technology in this rapidly evolving market. John is also responsible for Accenture's digital video practice, which serves media, cable, and telecom companies to launch, evolve, and operate product in this progressively disrupted market. Thanks, John.
Good to be here.
Next, we have Mike Kavis. Mike is Vice President and Principal Architect at Cloud Technology Partners. Mike is a distinguished author of Architecting the Cloud and writes for both Forbes and the virtualization practice. Mike has held various positions such as CTO, Chief Architect, and VP of Architecture. His current focus areas are IoT, big data, and containers. And finally, last but not least, we have Uday Ayagari. Uday is the Chief Solutions Architect and Google Alliance Solutions Head at Mahindra. With over 20 years of experience and executive leadership, he owns a large solutions portfolio across a number of verticals. Uday has built several large delivery teams and innovation centers and focuses on strategic adoption of cloud and IoT. Please help me in joining our panel. So Mike, starting with you, can you just tell us a little bit more, introduce your firm, and tell us a little bit about kind of your areas of expertise and how you've helped companies move to the cloud?
Sure. Happy to be here. People probably recognize the PwC brand, the largest professional services firm in the world across accounting, tax, and advisory business. And as part of our advisory business, I'm a partner in our advisory business. We have consulting deals and our forensics teams. But within consulting, we focus quite a lot on large-scale business transformation. And several years ago, I was asked to lead our cloud efforts. And when we look at cloud computing, we look at it very holistically across what it's doing for an enterprise, both within their IT organization, in their product organization, how organizations are leveraging cloud to drive productivity and transformation within particular business units. And I'm based here in the Bay Area, and so we focus a lot on our high-tech and now broader set of clients on transforming how new services and products that they can develop using cloud technology to deliver to their customers. So a broad range of things, and I'm sure we'll get into some of the discussions on specific details. One of the interesting things here is PwC, we migrated away from our legacy workplace productivity tools over to Google for Work. And now I'm leading a number of initiatives in developing tools and solutions on top of the Google Cloud platform that we're delivering to our clients.
Great, thank you. John, can you talk for Accenture?
Glad to be here as well. Most of you may have heard of Accenture as well, much like PwC. We're a large global management consulting firm. We have about 400,000 resources around the world, and we're really organized resource-wise around 2 key dimensions. One is capability, All of our consultants are have a deep acumen in a particular capability, whether it's strategy, consulting, operations, digital, or technology. And what we've found in addressing large enterprise cloud transformations, that each of these capabilities play a very key role in a successful transformation, whether you're defining the vision and the roadmap, standing up a particular cloud implementation, or designing an op model on how we organize resources ongoing. The other dimension is industry. And industry dictates, where we have individuals support which clients. And while most of the considerations we look at in considering a cloud journey are broadly applicable across the market, we do find that there is some industry nuance that it can affect any individual company's cloud journey. So for example, in media, we might find that we start in the digital media workflow space, or with a large telco, we might start with our omni-channel platform and the like. All of our customers are consuming cloud today, whether it's individual SaaS products, platforms like GCP, where they're building custom applications and the like, or buying storage and compute. And we found that about 80% of all companies are using infrastructure as a service to some degree today. And the result of this pattern of consumption is really these hybrid environments. And we found about 50% of all companies have hybrid cloud strategies. And we think that is a blueprint that is going to continue into the future. And it's guided how we've invested in our cloud capability in serving the market. A couple of examples, I guess. We have an organization called Cloud First, where we house about 21,000 skilled resources on a broad set of leading cloud platforms and products. And we've spent years and considerable R&D resources in developing something called the Accenture Cloud Platform, which is an open, multi-vendor platform that enables organizations to effectively and efficiently manage hybrid environments, if I can get that out. So anyway, I hope that gives you a little bit of insight in how we view the market.
Mike Cavish here, glad to be here. You may have not heard of us, but we're cloud technology partners based out of Boston, Massachusetts. Our consultants live everywhere. I'm out of Tampa. We're about a 100-person company. We're kind of the born in the cloud type company, so a lot of our people, including myself, come from the enterprise. Some people run data centers. I myself have worked on distributed systems and big data systems for years. And our goal is to accelerate the cloud, right? Accelerate whether you're moving to the cloud or building to the cloud, whatever you're doing. We have a lot of IP and documented processes of how to get you there as fast as possible, and we iterate through things. So that's our story. We do everything from cloud migration, cloud strategy, to DevOps, to containers, technologies, you name it, we kind of cover the broad spectrum.
Hi, my name is Uday Agari, and I come from Mahindra. And we are a global SI for Google, and we have a very large practice in various different areas of cloud. We have about 120,000 employees across the globe. You probably haven't heard much about Mahindra, but we are predominantly all over the globe, APAC, ANZ, and the Americas. And we are engaged actively in a lot of telecom being one of our largest sector. And then we are heavy into automobile industry, several different verticals. We come with a strong practice in advisory services, business transformation projects, and we have over 50 different services and product frameworks. So the key aspect of our go-to-market strategy is to take solutions. It's basically solution-based approach, where we have a number of frameworks that, like including the cloud migration strategy that we're going to talk about, and also various different service offerings and product offerings across the various different industries that I talked about, predominantly in analytics and telecommunications with analytics and automobile and yeah, so that's pretty much it.
Great, thanks. Why don't we do a quick sort of market survey? So can you talk a little bit, maybe we'll start with you, Uday, on sort of the trends you're seeing, what are customers trying to do in the cloud, and where have they seen the most success?
Yeah, so thanks for the question. So we have noticed a lot of heavy trend towards migrating basically cloud is here to stay, And there's a lot of stress on moving their applications, mostly the on-premise applications. What are the forces maybe moving over from like the CapEx to an OpEx model? The focus is mostly on getting onto the cloud, and there's a lot of confusion and fear and experience, lack of experience rather, that's kind of driving a lot of this, the strategy towards moving over to the cloud. So we are noticing a lot of movement, so to speak, in moving some of the reporting, the DR applications over to the cloud, and then so that is primarily the focus.
Are you seeing anything different, Mike?
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of movement to the cloud, both from native development, but one of the big drivers is data center consolidation. So a lot of companies have 30 and they need to get to 5 by X date, and that's driving the kind of lift and shift mentality. We don't have time to kind of change the architecture. We just need to get there, consolidate, get our expenses down, and then the next generation is how do I modernize and really take advantage of the high level features of the cloud.
Okay. John, anything to add?
Yeah, one thing I'd share, I guess, is that each year Accenture publishes a technology vision. We do this to identify what are the trends that we think are going to affect our clients in a significant way in a 18 to 36 month planning horizon. And one of the themes in this year's Tech Vision is around the platform economy. And part of this exercise includes a survey. We surveyed about 3,500 technology executives around the world, and it was interesting. About 85% came back with the statement that they believe that their company is going to move away from selling products today to selling business outcomes through managed services in the next 3 to 5 years. And we think this is a trend that's really going to push traditional companies to get into the platform business as sort of their foundational method of delivering products and services. And you can kind of start to see some of that show up in the market today. You've got companies like General Motors, who's implementing, My Chevrolet, which is a platform that integrates the buyers of their electric vehicle, the Bolt, right, to upload product or car vehicle performance information, trend it, benchmark it against other drivers, send it to product development and the like, or companies like Kaiser Permanente, who's establishing a platform to collect and manage electronic medical data, but also integrate all the broad ecosystem players that help them collectively serve their patients today. Or even General Electric, right, who's starting to pivot, move away from their traditional industrial manufacturing roots and getting more into software and data. So we think this trend will continue, and as these epicenters in industry start to mature, they're going to have to support millions of end consumers, thousands of ecosystem partners, operate in an always-on environment, which is going to require them to work with, web-scale, large platform, trusted platform providers like Google and the like go forward. And I think Google happens to be one that is well positioned to serve this market. In a lot of ways, we believe in their proven ability to look at their core product and data and create new, interesting value-added services, much like the Vision API we saw earlier in the keynote.
Great.
Yeah, I would just add, similarly at PwC each year we survey over 1,400, this year it was over 1,400 CEOs globally. And it's a pretty broad split of sizes of organizations, global mix across all industries. And for the 4th year in a row, the number one item top of mind for CEOs was the impact technology is going to have on their business. And both from the perspective of how are they going to leverage new technologies to create a competitive advantage, but also concern about smaller organizations that have access to platforms like the Google Cloud Platform that can quickly take IP and create solutions and really disrupt what our clients are trying to do in the market. And so a lot of the trend that we see from that, and actually interestingly enough, this year there was a bit of a pivot. It's not just about the technology, but how is that technology being leveraged to drive innovation? And innovation with respect to product, with respect to how they're operating their business, and this unique kind of interplay between how technology gets leveraged for innovation and how you're going to leverage and identify talent to allow you to do that. And it's really all with respect to moving faster in an ever more dynamic marketplace. And so, for instance, we working with Google and on the Google Cloud platform, one of the things that we thought was very important was to, the number one item that comes up is around security, is to really take that head on, where we've developed our security analytics platform, leveraging the Google Cloud platform, with this notion that security of exclusion is really a bit of a myth. You're always compromised at some level, and so the goal is how quickly can you identify what's happening within your environment, pinpoint where it is, and remediate that. And so that's just an example similar to what we're seeing with our in our survey and at our clients, but really starting to look at how can you leverage this technology to create something that is differentiating for you in the market.
I appreciate you, Mike, for bringing up security. I think one of the themes that we just heard is sort of the opportunity that's afforded by technology and by cloud, but also the business transformation that's happening and the uncertainty and some of the fear kind of that revolves around that. So can you talk a little bit to some of the hurdles that you're seeing companies face and what you guys are doing to help them overcome those hurdles?
Yeah, well, when you think about conservative organizations, our brand is relatively conservative. So, we spent, and I was up close and personal when we made our decision to move over to the Google Cloud platform and Google for Work. There was a lot of questions, understandably, because we're in a regulated environment, our audit business, and a lot of questions around security and how we would manage that. And working with Google, we were able to get through the security questions, but the biggest thing that we're seeing is, quite frankly, regulation, compliance and regulation, understandably isn't keeping pace with the rate of change in technology. And so oftentimes, where there is amazing technology that allows organizations to connect better, move faster in the market, there are regulations that were written many years ago that didn't contemplate the technologies that are there today. And so a lot of what we spend time with our clients helping them work with is understanding what those regulations are, understanding how they can apply those regulations in the context of some of the hurdles that we would see, apply those regulations in understanding how they can still get benefit from the technology.
Got it, great. John, are you seeing anything different?
You mentioned security. The only thing I'd add to that is that definitely with all the cyber breaches recently, right, that's obviously created a lot of anxiety. One pattern we have seen is that as clients get closer to the providers that they've selected, like a Google, they inevitably push through it. And I think it's more about just engaging with the right vendors that you trust. And at the end of the day, public cloud consumption is rising at 44% a year right now, and on-premise at 9%. So the move to public cloud is not stopping because of security, but it's obviously always the first thing. I think the other common barrier that we find is just the mental barrier of where to start, right? It can seem very daunting. There's a lot of, do we do a traditional lift and shift? Do we do new on new? What is the right approach? And honestly, the guidance that we always give is to really take the time to put together a cloud strategy and a vision and a roadmap and all the due diligence that implies to allow you to move with confidence, because it really is a broad transformation. It's not about procurement or finding a new hardware infrastructure provider. It's a broad transformation that needs to be given that level of diligence. And then I think lastly, another hurdle we've seen is just internal talent. So as you might guess, most organizations don't have a breadth of talent sitting there that understand how to design cloud-based architectures in high-velocity environments and the like. And so as you create your vision and your roadmap to roll out cloud capability within your organization, having a talent plan that can keep pace with that roadmap is crucial.
Great. Mike?
Yeah, the other thing is, there's a lot of mythology about cloud security and stuff like that. So one of the first things we do, we come in and the first thing we do is a workshop, and we kind of go through all that and talk about myth versus reality. And we have a lot of case studies of our own clients in financial institutions and health institutions that this is how they overcame those hurdles. And we had one customer who was in the security space, and when Heartbleed was going on, I said, well, how long does it take you to patch that? Well, it takes them months to provision a server. So I kind of drew this chart, and I said, okay, over 3 months, this is how many Heartbleed type things happen. So by the time you get rid of this one, there's 4 more. This is another reason to take advantage of the cloud, right? Infrastructure as code. You can actually turn servers or VMs around in minutes or days, So it's kind of leveling the playing field. There's a lot of chatter, and a lot of it comes from companies that are not benefiting from the public cloud, hardware companies, private cloud companies. So it's leveling the playing field, showing real use cases, real success stories, and just kind of leveling the playing field.
Great.
Yeah, so from our perspective, when we go to a client, typically 9 out of 10 cases, it's basically the security. Security is job number one, always, and we've talked not enough about that. However, we need to, part of the methodology and the framework that we offer, on a side note, is we have a complete, fully matured framework where we interview the client and understand what their security architecture is, currently what the security assets are, and move them over to the new platform. But it's not as simple as just doing a lift and shift. So security one side, now that needs to be basically addressed with performance. Security, performance, and then we have loss of control. So there's a perception among the customer community about losing all this infrastructure. They've invested already heavily into it. What are they going to do about it? So sometimes it's a balancing act. It's not a straightforward answer. It's a one-size-fits-all does not work out here. They need to weigh their options on, is it do they move now? Is it a ripe time to move over to the cloud and adopt the best cloud practices? Because it's an imperative. It's not a question of choice. As against, do they want to still hold on to their infrastructure and the investments that they have? So that's the loss of control I was talking about. Now the other aspect, which is slightly tougher, is what we face is the business aspect to it. So we have change management. There's this whole perception about loss of jobs. What traditionally used to be the hard jobs that we talked about a moment back, they could be transformed, right? So how do we retrain, reskill the workers? How does the management look at that, right? So there are various different aspects to it. Now, part of that also goes along with the legality of the data residency issues. Are they really ready for moving over to that next make that big leap to probably segregate the data and move part of it over to the cloud, which is what needs. So all these decisions, we need to have a holistic approach, and that's what we provide as a framework through a heavily templated approach. There are business application, portfolio analysis that we do, and then we come up with a very strong recommendations, which eventually is up to the client to adopt, guided recommendation. So in all this, I think Mike was stating, the speed is breakneck, all right? We're not talking about a 4-year platform or a 2-year roadmap. It's probably 3 months, right? And you have to be very realistic, because there's so many options out there, so many points where you can points of failure, so to speak. So in all the through this entire journey, it becomes very imperative for our customers, and that's what they turn back to us for, is they need to have a trusted advisor by their side, and that's exactly what we provide. So we had, just as a case in point, just for the audience also to know, we have about, just taking the figures recently over the last quarter, over 26,095 successful application migrations that we've done over to the cloud. And this is across 193 companies, APAC, ANZ, and we're talking the entire globe. So we come with deep expertise, deep experience. We pretty much have a majority of the questions, even though the migration methodology and the framework itself is evolving. There are very strong use cases, and you can stop by at the booth if you want some more details about it.
Can I harp on one point?
Please.
He mentioned another barrier is that fear of lost job, and what we really see is, when you go to the cloud and you automate a lot of this stuff, you don't lose a job. You let these people work on higher value tasks, and that's something they need to be told, because a lot of the stuff they do. They wish they had time to do these higher level tasks, and that's one of the beauties of the clouds. It takes away that mundane stuff that you have to work on. It frees you up to work on things that really move the needle. So it's not, no one's job's getting replaced. You're going to work on more important things.
Exactly, it's core versus context, right?
Yeah.
So kind of to the end of the business transformation and the organizational transformation, to your point, that cloud's enabling, there's going to be customers that are kind of on different ends of the sort of risk tolerance spectrum. I think, John, you were mentioning sort of that choice between lift and shift or new on new. So what types of things, John, are you advocating to some of your more conservative customers who maybe don't want to kind of jump in head first from day one?
So we still recommend that they do think through and have a deliberate strategy and a roadmap, even if that roadmap is more conservative and aligns more with their culture. But a lot of places they will start is new on new is the easiest, where it's greenfield. They're likely consuming cloud today in their interactive businesses, whether it's mobile or online. And then any sort of major inflection point in which they're doing re-architecture is an opportunity that we encourage them to embrace. I think the other area too is SaaS, which when we think of cloud, you think of custom development and the like. But moving from instead of doing high velocity development in the public cloud with sensitive data, which is where everyone gets a lot of anxiety, adopting SaaS platforms as well as a way to ease down that road. And then the second is, we definitely encourage them to adopt a platform. When you look at, if you're going to move at a very, I'd say more deliberate or measured pace, it's hard to bring the organization along if you just say, hey, we're doing cloud, right? And so, here's some broad-based tools and whatnot, but if you come in with a deliberate platform and also bundle it more with not just, hey, we're doing cloud, but you're bundling it with a different way of delivery, right? And so it probably is integrated with a number of other initiatives that you have in flight, whether that's your agile transformation or maybe you're implementing DevOps, and bundling that together to where you're bringing your organization along in this whole notion of, yes, we do things differently and we're producing different architectures and we're moving at a different pace. And if that is underpinned by a very deliberate platform, it's much easier for an organization to get their arms around.
So Mike, John just talked about sort of new on new being maybe the lowest risk thing, but also kind of having more of a organization-wide strategy for cloud adoption and roadmap. What are you guys doing that's maybe different or in addition to that?
Well, I mean, I would agree. I think the question is not if, but when. Organizations, there's too much benefit in moving and adopting cloud for organizations not to move in that direction. And so, as John pointed out, we do the same with our clients. Be thoughtful about what you're ready for, as well as what you're not ready for. And we also encourage people to invest the time to really understand what is the business value that you're going to get out of it. Because, as you said, you can't, if you say we're going to do cloud for cloud's sake, that loses people. They want to understand if you can articulate the speed at which teams can collaborate differently across the globe and compare current state to future state leveraging cloud platform, or articulate how transformation or development of technology assets can go from a procurement exercise into months of development to weeks and outside a month. Those are the types of things where people then start to understand, okay, here's the value that I'm going to get out of that, and then you're having a risk discussion on very different terms. You're agreed that you want to move in the direction of business value, but you're thoughtful about the risks that you're willing to take in moving in that direction.
Great. Mike, anything to add?
There's a lot of areas to cover on transformation, organizational change. One area that gets forgotten a lot of times it's developer-led, so it's get the first apps, and then forget about the operations side. How do I run this? How do I keep track of costs and everything? And in the data center, whether your processes are good or not, you know them and they've been in place for 20 years. Now you're going to this new platform, you don't have any. right? So in the transformation, we make sure in sequence while you're building architectures, you're also building out how do you run, the run book of this stuff. So that's a big piece that gets missed. It's really easy to get stuff, the first few in the cloud, but then you got 1,000. If you don't have how do I run it, it becomes worse than what you had before, right? So you got to think about the whole spectrum.
Great.
Yeah, so the trend that we're seeing mostly, so can you repeat the question? What are the hurdles?
The question is, for the more conservative companies,
right.
How are you helping these companies kind of adjust to that cloud adoption journey? We heard a little bit about sort of the roadmap, the planning, the process management, and so on. Do you have anything to add?
So mostly, like I said earlier, there is fear and the experience that's lacking. So they don't know what they're up against, even though there is, starting at the advisory board level, at the board level, there is a mandate to move over to the cloud, but they don't know exactly how, right? So our approach, generally, we advocate an approach where we just want to move bite-sized steps first before we make the big leaps. So definitely, there's no one-size-fits-all, but typically we would, through this entire portfolio analysis where we do this entire bucketing of different applications, portfolio segmentation, the recommendations typically come across in terms of what are the stuff that is qualified for lift and shift, right? And then lift and shift is one, re-architecting and re-engineering is another one where there may be small tweaks here and there that may be required. However, that probably requires some more in-depth recoding kind of stuff, which is a little slightly expensive. And there are applications which you don't want to touch, it's better off on-premise, and you probably may want to think about sunsetting those applications as well. So these are, just a very interesting example. We were working with a media company not so long ago. This has been there since the 1960s. All right, so there are a whole bunch of code and COBOL-driven programs which is lying out there. And when we actually engaged with all different, the entire cross-section of the IT community, half of them, they did not even know what those applications did. All right, so that's, this is something that, the typical answer was this was there since I joined. I don't know exactly what it does. And there's a fear of uprooting that application because you don't know what wires they would be unplugging by just removing it. So there are some eye-opening exercises which come as a part of this entire exercise. But the recommendation again typically comes over there are non-revenue facing applications, non-business critical applications that you want to kind of put it on the side, just have a plan for it, put it in the roadmap probably 9 months later. But you want to just address the low-hanging fruit right now. And what are those low-hanging fruits? Those are typically reporting applications, DR kind of applications, disaster recovery, which don't have a high rate of RTO, RPO kind of requirements, even if it is. So the idea is to have adopters and evangelists internally from within the company who can advocate for you, right? So just a few successes here and there, and slowly, we've actually seen this translate into mega projects, starting with just moving a few reporting applications. You'd be surprised. Now, one more point that I'd like to add here is the kind of adoption that you'd see within these enterprises is it's exponential. The graph is not linear like this. It just goes it's a straight curve. First, you're talking about 5, 10, 20 applications, reporting applications. After that, they are just asking you, the conversation changes. They're talking about moving the P1 applications, P0 applications, order management systems, which are directly attached to the revenue. And then the security conversation starts, because that's where the entire conversation starts, right? So the thing is, while we're moving over to the cloud, how can we change our security posture? It's not about how can I protect my existing data and move my existing artifacts over to the cloud. That is not the conversation. It's mostly about how can I change, because they know the security personnel that they have hired, they're probably not the best, and they probably are 2 steps behind the hackers who are trying to break into their applications. But coming with cloud, we kind of make the point gradually that it's more, your applications are safer sitting in the cloud, and that becomes easy conversation. So the whole thing starts with going for the low-hanging fruits, and then making the conversation for a few steps first, crawl before you run.
So it sounds like kind of the goal here with these more conservative enterprises is to sort of generate internal support for cloud adoption through kind of small, low-risk wins, and try to use that to kind of grow that engagement internally. Now, we got a chance to talk earlier to Spotify and to Disney. who've obviously been much more aggressive, more progressive with their cloud adoption. How does that change your ability, and what kind of dynamic things are you guys doing with those companies that have fewer constraints and are willing to kind of jump into that business transformation a little more quickly? Mike?
Yeah, well, some of the things that we've highlighted here, the sky's the limit, if you will, on what you can do. Organizations that are moving very aggressively towards the cloud and leveraging it is, again, when the value that they're able to generate and the speed at which they're able to, again, with our clients, we focus on this concept around high velocity IT, and it's based on cloud infrastructure development platforms that allow for leveraging a DevOps model that once you have the platform in place, and you highlighted from some of your research, this platform economy that is coming up, companies that start to move in that direction really start to realize benefits maybe that they didn't even think about. You start to put things into the cloud, develop services, develop solutions, and as you continue to move in that direction, you learn more about what you can be doing differently. And so, and that gets back to that, some of our research on our CEO survey, where this whole notion of providing the proper tools to allow people to innovate internally really does change the game for organizations that are ready to adopt it in an aggressive way.
Right. So John, Mike was talking a little bit about like developer velocity. We also heard a lot about things like machine learning and sort of data capabilities. What's sort of moving the needle for kind of your most sort of sophisticated customers?
So let's see. I think a lot of it is about, and some of these kind of build on a point that Mike made, which is the promise of cloud. Companies go into it for a number of reasons. They feel like they have to. They're looking for efficiency. They want velocity and the like. But the reality is that it's really one element of a broader transformation in changing the way they deliver technology to support their business. And often it's driven by maybe a couple of different factors. One is that they need to keep pace with the business, which is now operating in a market that demands a quicker time to market, more rapid and iterative innovation. And at the same time, maybe you've come to a maturity level on some traditional models of offshoring and outsourcing and the like, and now you need to get that next level of productivity out of technology delivery. And so looking at a number of different concepts in high velocity or new IT, as Mike mentioned, really come together, really need to be implemented in aggregate to achieve the promise of across these. And that includes platforms and cloud, but also DevOps and instrumentation, automation, and of course Agile to get into iterative development. And those three together, particularly if you're moving fast, the only way to sustain that change and not run into a bunch of barriers after your initial sprint out of the gate is to ensure that you've got the right op model, and so you're constructing your organization to move with these new tools and methods. And for developers, it's a completely different way to operate, right? So for engineers, you gotta double down on the culture and on the talent model such that you can keep that pace. But that's what we found, is that if there is a lot of excitement, the company has a strategy. I think Mike's points around making sure that vision ties to goals that are measurable and everyone feels accountable to, and then having this comprehensive approach on how to get there would be my input.
Great. Mike?
So I wrote this post on Forbes a while back called the 4 Stages of Cloud Competence, and it matches with the old psychology 4 competencies. And at the first phase, it's like you don't know, so therefore you don't like. So I don't know anything about cloud, and it's bad. And then the second stage is I kind of know about it, so I go into it and I'm treating it like a data center, right? And then the third stage is, okay, I've got competencies, I've used the cloud, and then you start really taking advantage of some of these higher level services. And the fourth level is, I'm totally competent. And those are the companies that see the cloud as a way to transform the business. And those are like the Spotify, those types of companies that say, I can use this in ways and change the way we price things. I could change business models. I could offer services I've never offered before. And we've seen all those types of customers, and there's a lot of different examples. But really a lot of how much, like there's a lot of companies coming to the public cloud for the first time, but they've been building private clouds for 2-3 years. So they get cloud. And a lot of them are coming to public cloud because they said, wow, that's a lot of hard work. I don't want to do a lot of that work anymore. So you get that mix of competency, but the more experience people have in the cloud, the more they move up that stack. They start using, a lot of these services we saw today. But a lot of the early people are like, I'm afraid of lock-in, so they just treat it like a data center. And all they're really doing is they have a virtual data center, and they're still doing all the same work they did in their data center. They're just doing it on the cloud now. Missing a big opportunity.
So Uday, any examples you can share, to Mike's point, of companies that have really kind of gone to that next level of abstraction, really using the higher order services and kind of try to take full advantage of the public cloud?
Yeah, absolutely. So most of my discussion points would go around core versus context. We already know about that, right? So the points that John raised about, or he mentioned about DevOps, right? So what we're talking about, the velocity is phenomenally increased. We all know that. Now, I'll give you an example again. Now, we are just doing a proof of concept for a prospect. The core business model centers around heavy compute, all right? Now, I don't want to, probably it's fair to differentiate also the other cloud sources. What GCP brought to the table is what used to take, the complex algorithms that would be fed into with petabytes of data that it would just dig into to come back with the result, would take 45 minutes to an hour for an average workload, all right? Now, we just did a POC where we just got the same amount of data and richer quality with richer analytics with under 10 seconds. So this is just one case point. So just think of the magnitude of savings, right? So we're talking 45 minutes versus 10 seconds. Now, that's not the whole value proposition here. Now so certainly the moment we just do this, the good news goes across like wildfire. Now, they are now the investors and the senior management are essentially looking at how they can scale this across a vast portfolio of their applications. So we're talking of significant, enormous amounts of savings for operational efficiency. Now the PhD folks who are primarily working on the core engineering and coming up with newer formulae, so to speak, without giving out too much of their business model and what they're exactly doing, they are sitting side by side with the folks who are actually coding it for them, and the results are instantaneous. So we see the needle moving heavily in in terms of operational efficiency. It's for real, right? So that's one example, and then we have so many different efficiency services, Kubernetes being one of them, and then we have the Vision API. It just basically opens up more possibilities, right? And then certainly we have a lot of visualization aspect to this entire conversation that comes up. If you're talking logistics, for example, we have a product called for supply chain visibility platform, which basically brings all the entire supply chain stakeholders onto a common platform. It's basically we track inventory. Now on top of that, we are able to bring in a very rich user look and feel, great high level of user experience in various different aspects. So the conversation is has certainly risen in terms of the capabilities that we can bring, how we can enable the business using more enabling technologies. So the possibilities all around, right? So a lot of announcements that we heard in the morning, today in the morning, they directly address how each of these services are directly addressing the business community. So yeah, it's in multiple, it's hard to say there's one single area, but then if you had to speak about it, it's probably the time to market capability. You have an idea, bring it to the market it's a matter of, probably it's slashed. I wouldn't say days or months or hours, but it's drastically reduced. So yeah, time to market and then operational efficiency are the two things that come to my mind right now, but there are definitely more.
Great, thanks. Now we're starting to run short on time, so I appreciate all your comments so far. If you can give the audience maybe just one last parting thought on kind of if they're starting their cloud migration journey, kind of what's the one piece of advice you'd give? Starting with you, Uday.
Sure, yeah. So one size fits all does not work. Cloud migration has to happen, all right? So we've read enough articles, enough material out there, it's basically you want to focus on your business versus you want to be maintaining a whole bunch of metal boxes and then kind of doing the infrastructure kind of work, right? And still be left behind. Now, why the transition will be pretty rapid? I think like if you just look 5 years back where we were, compared the conversation that we're having right now, it's like significantly different. What I think is along the way, I mean there are too many points of failure, like I mentioned, purely because of the way your systems have been architected or the kind of ecosystem that you survive in or live in. Like probably 25 or 30 years old applications still surviving out there. It's time to kind of do an overhaul. So you need a trusted advisor during this journey. All right, and with us having done over 26,000 applications migrations, put across all our client base, we come with a very rich methodology and a framework to kind of handhold you to success.
Great.
Real quick, because we're at zero. Start with a proven methodology. Start small. Iterate, learn, iterate.
Great.
That's good. Quickly, then I would say operate with a plan, create a plan that's integrated with your broader technology delivery transformation. Don't forget op model, talent, and culture. And the last is treat it like the level of transformation that it is and get senior sponsorship that's going to be visible throughout the journey to bring everybody along.
Yeah, I would quickly say, touching on a point that I raised earlier is this notion of it is a transformation. You want to bring your organization with you. So identify the business outcomes that you're looking for and how cloud's going to help you achieve that. And that will drive a greater willingness for adoption. And I would agree with John on this notion of being thoughtful and diligent about setting that plan. Once you establish your business goals, be thoughtful about how you're going to move towards achieving those.
Great. Well, thank you all very much. Please help me join me in thanking the crowd. Appreciate it.